And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Thursday, January 12th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. And today we go to our Shoshone Bannock pundit, Mark Trahant, with a few comments on what happened or didn't happen on Tuesday, January 10th in the New Hampshire Republican primary, and then to northern Wisconsin for some more information on a mining hearing. Mark Trahant, thank you for joining us today on the Native News Update. It's Thursday, 2 days after the New Hampshire primary for the Republicans up there, and looking at some of the initial results, nothing changed. Tell us what you saw coming out of New Hampshire, though.
I think nothing changed is a pretty good headline. On the top of it, you have Mitt Romney, who has boatloads of money and organization. And in any other election cycle, he would be rolling to an absolute sweep. But the rules are different this time around, so we'll see whether that still holds true.
Is the sweep because he's won two in a row now, just slightly?
Correct. No non-incumbent has ever won from the Republican side, has ever won both New Hampshire and Ohio and Iowa, going back to something like 60, I forget what year, but it's been a while.
And not won the nomination. If they've
Right.
won those two states, they're in the roll. That's what it seems. Ron Paul, interesting enough, came in second place. People are saying that's a lot of independent crossovers. Is that how you kind of feel that thing out?
I would say it's more people just totally disgusted with the whole political process, and they see Ron Paul with his very simplistic ideas as somebody who could fix things. But to be blunt, he's not playing in the real world.
Okay, so but he may end up with delegates. Isn't there kind of like this approach of some of the candidates? They know they're not going to win the nomination, but they're going to continue on with a poor campaign to pick up delegates to see if they have enough to do a balance of power between the winner and the loser, or a dark horse, or policy changes.
Absolutely. And his idea is not only to win delegates, but to push the Republican Party into more of a libertarian mold. And he sees this as a long-term movement. He's come from, I mean, he's been doing this for many years anyway. And I think he's now positioning it so his son, Rand Paul, will take over the next round to continue to push the Republicans to become a libertarian party. And that has real consequences. I remember once being in a jungle of Nicaragua during the Contra War, and we were crossing a bridge with some Canadians, and they were talking about the difference between U.S. and Canada down there. And they laughed and said, "You have to remember that what we do doesn't matter." And that's sort of the libertarian ideal, is to make America more of a country that doesn't matter in the world. But that's going to be very difficult to pull off.
A country without big government, big rules, and in fact, almost nothing. John Huntsman, third place. You were going to say something.
Oh, I just want to say something that's driving me nuts, and that is all these so-called constitutional conservatives keep talking about the Constitution, but when it comes to the supreme law of the land and recognizing and funding treaty obligations, not a single one of them has stepped forward. So it's a very selective view of what the Constitution.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There was a hearing on a mining bill in Wisconsin yesterday, and some southern uh, politicians came up and started asking about everyone keeps talking about this treaty. You'd think a Wisconsin legislator would know about the treaty, or Republicans, at that level would know about treaties and the Constitution. I said John Huntsman. What did you hear when he has that third place over Newt Gingrich?
Third place. I think he's essentially done. It's just a question of when he recognizes that. He's actually the Republican that more, I'd say, middle Americans would take another look at if they had the opportunity. But I think he may have the opportunity in 4 years, but it's not going to be this cycle.
You said Rick Santorum might have been the winner coming out of Ohio with second place. Here he comes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 down. He didn't take in New Hampshire.
No, he's not. That's not their cup of tea. Again, he is a conservative that likes social issues, and that just doesn't play well in New Hampshire.
What's coming up next? South Carolina. What's going to happen down there? Are we going to lose a few on the trail after that?
Well, Newt Gingrich is trying to make that election so difficult that he passes Mitt Romney there, and it's kind of really, I mean, we're now down to the point where we only have two primaries left that have a real minimal impact. That's Florida and South Carolina. After that, they start the winner-take-all primaries. So if somebody's on a roll after those two, they can start getting ones. So this is where they're going to make their stand in the next month or so.
Okay, so in the next month there go, they've got to make their stand. Is that what you said? I had a double talk there when you go fast.
Right, between now and March 6th, which is Super Primary, Super Tuesday.
And I suspect by then we're going to know who's on that roll. Is that what you're saying?
In a normal election, we would, but if South Carolina comes out muddled, we might not. It might continue on for some time.
Bottom line is they seem to like beating each other up at this point. Newt took the gloves off. He was going to be this real civil guy, and off the gloves came, and they're bloodying each other in a way.
And it's making some at the White House very happy.
Okay. Let's take a look at what happens after South Carolina. We appreciate you joining with us again today, and we'll talk to you again soon about some other Washington, D.C. issues.
Sounds good, Paul.
And now we move over to just a small piece of over 11 hours of testimony yesterday in Hurley, Wisconsin, including elected tribal delegations from the Bad River, Red Cliff, Lac du Flambeau, and Menominee Nations. This is a small portion of the Bad River Ojibwe Tribal Chairman's, Mike Wiggins' presentation, whose tribe would be significantly impacted by a proposed 5-mile-long open-pit mine just upstream from their pristine reservation, where they harvest thousands of pounds of wild rice each year. Can they save the rice from the mining corporations?
I'd add one other thing. Consultation would allow us to get into detailed discussion about certain items. I heard somebody say earlier today, this ain't the time to ask questions of the committee, this is time to give testimony. Well, consultation would allow us to ask questions, questions like allowing G-Tac off the hook for groundwater contamination at depths deeper than 1,000 feet. What does that have to do with streamlining the permitting process and jobs? We could get into that a little bit, right? Very simple consultation where we could talk about things that matter, talk about the fact that that ink on your paper is going to have real life complications and ramifications for my people and the people of Bad River, people of Ashland County, Iron County. That's the kind of thing that the tribes are asking for. Because after all this goes away, guess what? The open pit mine sits there, and so do we.
We have water standards that are set based on the needs of the waterway, the needs of the things that live in the waterway, and one ought not to ignore the scientific determination of what can or can't go in those waters and enable them to either be or remain healthy, and say, well, here's a bunch of folks that want to do a particular economic activity. For them, we're giving them a pass. You can harm the living things in that river. That simply doesn't make any sense.
So you believe that there shouldn't be pollution at all, that water pollution is bad? Obviously, obvious question. Because what I want to get at
I'm not going to suggest that we have the ability today, as I stand here and as you sit there, to have a no discharge, no pollution world. We don't live in that world. We have a Clean Water Act that federally, in the early 1970s, established a goal for this country of having all of our waters swimmable, fishable, drinkable by 1985. My understanding is that that's a date in the past. We're not there yet, but the whole federal scheme has set up for 40 years this year a process of getting to the point of having no harmful pollution in the nation's waters. We're not there. It's taken, again, 40 years, and we're only partway there.
I guess I just find it ironic that you are here defending clean water when for 18 years as Commissioner and Chairperson of Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District, you've dumped over $1 billion of raw sewage into Lake Michigan. Gallons, I'm sorry. And I just find it ironic that you are here testifying 3 different times for clean water and not to pursue this mine, but yet, as a commissioner and chairperson on MMSD, that you
This
did
isn't
that.
appropriate.
Come on, Mary.
It's
Character assassination, buddy.
Well, let me explain that when I moved to Milwaukee following law school, 50 or 60 times a year, every time it rained significantly, the sewers overflowed. The streams were running, stinking
Excuse me, Madam
sewers.
Chair, this wasn't allowed when a Democrat did it. I don't think it's appropriate for this to continue.
I would simply invite the committee
wait,
to Milwaukee to
That's
enjoy
enough,
the
Dennis.
rivers.
Dennis, we won't have any more discussion on this side. We won't discuss.
And we won't have any more of your style either from now on.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
I would like to say,
Can we let him respond to it before we cut him off?
what just transpired is one of the reasons why we're pushing for a scientific kind of basis to this legislation. Because while Dennis may not be a scientist, I doubt that anyone sitting at this table is a water quality specialist or has the scientific background to talk about water quality changes as it relates to this legislation. So we could sit here and debate all night about what it really means, but at the end of the night it's going to all be moot because really we probably have no idea what we're talking about. And that's why we're asking. Scientific approach. Get the people that know what the ramifications are going to be as it relates to this legislation and get them at the table to help you. I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity for our council to testify. On behalf of our tribal council, I'd like to apologize to all of our elders and all of our tribal people that sat here since 9 a.m., even though you were here early to sign in. I realize you're not part of our tribal government. You should have been accorded the rights of all citizens. Next time I'll push harder in communications to ensure that doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Anyone ought to be ashamed and embarrassed to support the bill as written.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you said as written, and you said it passed the mining line.
No, I didn't say it passed any or some
and then
kind of bill.
Who's
This
we?
bill.
Who's we?
Let me say me in particular.
He's speaking for our tribal council. I hope that verbiage isn't too strong, but when you look at what this legislation really has in it, as it relates to groundwater, as it relates to wetlands, as it relates to impacts upon our people, I would think that you'd be able to get past the verbiage a lot quicker than we'll be able to get past the effects.
I'm trying to, in the spirit of people, so have a little respect. I respect everything that you said, but I would ask you to defer to my good judgment too and my ability to make a reasonable decision.
Have a little respect. Let me see. Choose some words here. One of the things I saw in West Dallas when I came to testify, when I traveled down there, was I seen a great big wall sitting right about there at that table, and I seen a lot of partisanship, a lot of Democrats, namely, that had no idea who authored this bill, that had no idea how this stuff come to the forefront. So you can talk about a process, but I've seen right there that it wasn't a very it was a broken process from what I saw. The other thing that I think is lacking because of that is integrity. Who wrote this bill? And that question I just asked a few minutes ago, I asked that with all due respect. Can you answer that?
I'm not getting a question. I'm not going to get off the topic and answer that question.
And that is another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. Thank you for joining with us, and come back again soon.